So today we are discussing the primary fulcrum towards the completion of the ultimate spiritual journey. And so we start by saying that the spiritual journey is often described as the process through which an individual moves towards self realization and ultimate enlightenment. At its core, self realization is not merely about understanding one's personal identity, but rather about recognizing and embodying the absolute, the ultimate reality that transcends space and time and most of the dimensions as we know it. The realization of the essential identity serves as the primary fulcrum towards this completion. It acts as the bridge between the relative self and what is the absolute. Much like the Merkaba, which is a sacred geometric construct representing spiritual ascension, this fulcrum provides the vehicle through which transformation occurs. This video will explore the concept of the essential identity, how its relationship to the absolute actually helps, and how various spiritual traditions may facilitate this ultimate realization. So we first begin by understanding the essential identity. The essential identity is the spark of the absolute within the individual soul. It is the aspect of the self that is untouched by worldly conditioning, representing the purest form of existence. While many spiritual traditions recognize different paths to enlightenment, they often converge on the idea that discovering one's essential identity is pivotal to the journey of self-realization. From a metaphysical standpoint, the essential identity is often described as a microcosmic reflection of the absolute, meaning that the true nature of the self is not separate from the ultimate reality. This understanding shifts the spiritual quest from seeking something external to uncovering a truth that has always been present within internally. So, what is the role of the essential identity in spiritual development itself? Well, spiritual development is fundamentally the journey towards self realization, as we've discussed. This journey can be divided into several key stages. So, let's go through those stages. The first stage is awakening. This is the initial recognition that there is more to existence than just the material world as we know it, that it's not just all about the average day to day things that we obsess about. There's something far more greater going on. We have purification, which is the process of shedding attachments, egoistic tendencies, and false identifications. We have the thirdly, illumination, which is a deeper awareness of one's essential identity and how it relates to the absolute. We have the fourth being union, which is the final stage when the individual fully integrates their essential identity within the absolute, transcending the illusion of separateness. Each stage of this journey is marked by increasing self awareness and alignment with the essential identity. The deeper one goes into self realization, the more the illusion of the separate self dissolves, allowing for a more profound connection with the absolute, something that we all share. So let's look at some perspectives from various spiritual traditions as to how this works. Different spiritual traditions provide various methodologies for realizing the essential identity, but they all emphasize the importance of self inquiry and direct experience of the absolute. Firstly, we have the Advaita Vedanta. Right, the Advaita Vedanta is a non-dualistic school of Hindu philosophy, which asserts that the individual self, which is Atman, is identical to the absolute, which is Brahman. So the primary objective to realizing this truth is avidya, which is ignorance. Through self-inquiry, atma vikara, and the dissolution of the ego, one recognizes that the true self is not really separate from the absolute at all. So what about from a Buddhist standpoint? Well, Buddhism, particularly in its Mahayana and Zen forms, teaches that the realization of one's true nature is equivalent to attaining nirvana. The concept of sunyata, which is emptiness, suggests that the self is empty of inherent existence, but is deeply interconnected with all things. The realization of one's essential identity involves seeing through the illusion of the separate self and embodying the compassionate wisdom of the unified whole. So what about from Christian mysticism? How does that work as a standpoint? Well, Christian mystics such as Meister Eckhart and St. John of the Cross emphasize the idea of divine union. The essential identity is seen as the soul's divine spark, which is through which contemplation and surrender merges that soul with God. The dark night of the soul represents the process of purification necessary for coming to this realization. Within Sufism, This is a mystical branch of Islam now, so to speak, right? This describes the journey of the soul towards union with God as one of love and remembrance, which is the cure. The concept of fana, which is annihilation of the self, and baka, which is a subsistence in God, illustrates how the realization of the essential identity leads to the ultimate recognition of the absolute and all of us being one. So, what are the practical paths of realizing the essential identity? While different traditions offer different unique perspectives, several universal practices aid in the realization of the essential identity. First is that we can do this through meditation and contemplation. Silence and introspection allow for a direct experience of one's true nature. We can do this through self-inquiry, asking the fundamental question, who am I, peels away layers of false identification. The third thing being service and compassion, which may lend itself to acting, right? And when we say acting, we mean acting selflessly, which diminishes the ego so that we can become one with our true nature. Surrender and devotion, which is letting go of personal will in favor of divine will, facilitates spiritual transformation. Mindfulness and presence, which means being fully present, allows for a deeper awareness of the spiritual identity. So, how does the spiritual fulcrum, in fact, intersect with the light body activation we know as Merkaba? Well, the Merkaba is a sacred geometric symbol representing the interconnectedness of spirit and matter. It serves as a dynamic vehicle for the realization of the essential identity, often depicted as two interlocking tetrahedrons spinning in opposite directions. The Merkaba embodies balance, harmony, and the union of polarities, mirroring the process of spiritual awakening. As the essential identity acts as a bridge between the relative self and the absolute, the Merkaba functions as a metaphysical tool that facilitates this transition, enabling the individual to transcend egoistic limitations and to merge with higher consciousness. Many spiritual practitioners use Merkaba meditation to activate the light body, aligning their energy with the divine and accelerating the journey towards enlightenment. In this way, the Merkaba and the essential identity converge at the fulcrum of spiritual transformation. And this helps to guide the seeker towards the completion of their spiritual journey as a whole. So, what about overcoming challenges on this spiritual journey? The realization of the essential entity is not without its challenges. There are going to be obstacles, and common obstacles we have include ego resistance. The ego clings to its separate identity and resists dissolution. Conditioning, the social, cultural, and religious conditioning can create mental barriers to self-realization. Fear of loss, right, which is letting go of the false self, can feel like it's a loss of personal identity. Spiritual bypassing, using spiritual concepts to avoid true inner work rather than facing the truth directly. And so overcoming these challenges requires a lot of patience, a lot of persistence, and a deep commitment to the truth. Guidance from a teacher or a spiritual mentor can also be invaluable in navigating the complexities of self-realization. So we wrap this up to bring to a close. In conclusion, the realization of the essential identity is the crucial fulcrum toward the completion of the spiritual journey. It serves as the gateway to the absolute, bridging the gap between personal self and the ultimate reality. As different spiritual traditions affirm, true enlightenment comes into a form not from acquiring so much external property and knowledge and so forth, but that understanding one's own essential identity is paramount. And, you know, in this way, we can have more mindful living. We can have individuals that awaken to a profound truth. We can compare the spiritual journey between others. And this is when we're really in the greatest fullness of realization that we can ever reach. And so I cannot stress to you how important this is. Listen to this several times if you have to, because the concepts are a bit esoteric. And so you may want to, play it a few times to let it all really set in. Okay? Take care. Have a great day.